Hey everybody, it's Eric live alongside Rod with our Minnesota postgame show presented by Fanduel Sportsbook, your go-to source for betting on the sports you love. Whether it's a parlay or you just want to stick to the money line, you'll find all the odds you need at Fanduel. On the app, it's easy to download. Just head on over to the App Store or, of course, Google Play to pick it up today. Start your adventure in gambling at Fanduel. You can head on over to our FanDuel player of the game as well at Slido. That's SLIDO.com. And hashtag TFFINOTS. You can vote there for your player of the game. We'll talk about that at the end of the segment here. So before we begin, also a quick word of thanks to Michael Yoakum, who supported the show with a one-time gift via PayPal. Also, huge thank you to the legions of you who support our show over on Patreon and Substack with this whether you're Scott Skiles supporters or Team Cleves level, Bill Church, Brian O'Donnell, Michael Bosnick, Chad Hickey, Mike Huntoon, and Scott Driscoll, Draymond Green supporters, Adam Walzak, Dan Rankin, Jim L., Paul Marsh, and Greg Bamer, as well as Rich Wagenheim, Kenneth Cremett, Roger Bronsnick, Al, Michael Emmerich, Joe and VT, and Jim Rainey on Substack. If you want to support the show, please head on over to our support page at tffinots.com/support to get the links. Well, Rod, that game was sort of a disaster, which we certainly thought it would be a tough game. But I don't think I certainly didn't expect what we saw. Once again, Michigan State looked lost offensively in the first half, trailed by 11 at half at 32-21. Never led the game. And despite cutting it to 5 midway through the second, Jeremy Fierce got called for a technical foul as he got fouled and kind of came back and kicked. I don't know, was it Reynolds? I can't remember who it was.
Yes, it was Reynolds.
Started kicking as he's falling down. Mad Fleur threes at the end by Fort and others. Cone Carr sort of imposing his will, managed to make the game interesting, at least at the end, academically. Despite they were down, I think 16 points or something like that. And they got all the way down to 2 points, but Minnesota made the free throws. And so Scott got moved into the starting lineup, which we anticipated when we were talking about this before. It helped, but it wasn't enough. Just a really disappointing loss, and one that, although mathematically doesn't put Michigan State out of the Big Ten hunt, I think we can say that it's, probably not a possibility at this point. I don't know, they need to go 8-0, but they might and that includes a home game against Illinois. You got road games in Michigan and Purdue. Kind of seems like a distant chance to me at this point. And certainly the way this game is, this team is playing right now. I mean, we usually see this, I feel like, January and February, sort of like this funk. Probably, you could say it started the Rutgers game and then sort of carried in Michigan and now Minnesota. Big game, Illinois coming in on Saturday. Sure don't feel good about that after watching this performance. I don't know where you want to start with this summary here.
I'll start with, I think, a very simple message to come out of this game. Very, very simple. They need to decide as a group what they want to be. And yeah, the season's at this kind of inflection point. And, it is remarkable how often in Tom Izzo's tenure we have these discussions right about the same time of the year.
Yes, very true.
Like fucking clockwork. I don't know why. Because it's not a scheduling thing, because it doesn't matter who they're playing. Last year they got beat by USC.
Yeah.
It just seems to happen. But regardless, that's where they're at. If they want to play with the kind of effort and the kind of force that we saw in the last 4 minutes, they got a chance. If they want to play the way they played the first 36 minutes, they're a very pedestrian team. And it's that simple. You talk about Cohen Carr. Cohen Carr was fantastic down the stretch. He was possessed. They could not handle him. Where was that Cohen Carr the first 36 minutes of that game? And
even defensively in the first half, I mean,
all of
he
it
was kind of lost all the time.
All of it.
Yeah.
It's just outrageous to me. Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler got beat physically by guys that they should kind of overwhelm.
Yep.
In that department. That should never happen. To the point that really, in the end, you saw what they were doing. I mean, eventually when they got it down where there was actually game pressure on Minnesota, they were bringing Jackson back in to give them another shooter. But Cam Ward was the guy that was playing inside down the stretch when they were making that run. I think because Izzo had it.
Well, he'd had it with
veterans. So that's that. And look, there's going to be a whole sideshow around Jeremy Fears. I'm already getting texts from people wondering about a suspension. I'm just going to say this on that front, and if I'm wrong, I'll have to wear it. But it would be, I gotta believe it would be virtually unprecedented to have a guy suspended for a flagrant one.
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't know how they justify that if they do it. That said, that was the key moment of the game. That was the.
I think that's where the game turned. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They had it down to 5 with the ball, and Jeremy gets fouled.
Yep.
You have momentum. You're making a run. You're getting yourself right back in the game, and it all turned from there. Just went south after that, to the point that Minnesota was working with a 16-point lead before MSU made its push.
Yeah.
So Jeremy Fears, and I think listeners know there aren't many people that are bigger fans of his game than I am. But I'm going to tell you, you want to be Mateen Cleaves, you want to do the things Mateen Cleaves did, and he can. He's capable of it, I believe. That stuff Mateen Cleaves never did. Mateen Cleaves was tough as nails. He was physical, all of that. He never did stuff like that, like we saw tonight.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You just can't.
I think, you know what, certainly after the Michigan game, you know, the tripping hole incident with the axle, and Dusty May pointed that out, and, you know, say what you will about Dusty May and all that stuff, whatever. But the thing is, like, and Izzo talked to his peers about this, because you have to be smart. You have to know sort of reputation. Refs are there. They're just as human as everyone else. They see everything. I mean, he's got to be an angel for here through the rest of the season. I mean, and this is the kind of thing.
Well, he doesn't have to be an angel. I'm going to disagree.
Well, he can't do
no
shenanigans,
do
stupid
He's got to
control
stuff.
himself. Yes.
You can't do stupid stuff. That doesn't mean you got to be an angel. You play hard, you play physically, you give no quarter to anybody. All that you can do, and you need to do, like we're talking about. Michigan State going to play with force? Are they going to play with intensity? Or are they going to just be pedestrian? That's the choice. But he can't do stupid stuff. That's stupid stuff. Like there's being physical. Like I'll give you one, for example. In the barrage of the stupidity that came out of Friday night's game, one of the things I saw people claiming was that the breakaway foul on Yaks that he got called for, I thought that was a bad call, actually. I didn't like that call because Jeremy was going for the ball.
Yeah.
That was a reputation call in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was not legitimate. That's fine. That's not dumb. You can argue, well, it was a breakaway. You're not going to stop him anyway. Okay. But in the greater scheme of things, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is stuff like we saw tonight. That's totally unnecessary. I understand Minnesota played very physically and probably got under his skin. But you have to keep your composure. So that's, I guess it's going to be, I mean, I'm surprised a couple of the people that have already said to me, have already used the suspension word. It shocked me because I honestly, I hadn't even thought about it. How many did Brad Davidson had before he got to that point? That's the thing. A lot. We're talking about a flagrant one. And you could say, as somebody just said to me, well, probably should have been a flagrant 2. Well, it wasn't. And I'd even question that. He didn't. Yeah, it deserved to be a tech. I don't disagree with that. That wasn't really a very dangerous play. He wasn't, the tripping stuff. Okay. That gets into danger because you can take a guy out with that kind of play. What Jeremy did does not rise to that level. And I'm not defending. I'm really feeling awful that I'm being put in I feel like I'm being put in a position. I got to defend that shit. But to me, that's hyperbolic. But you know what? I can't say they're wrong entirely. We're going to see, I guess. But either way, Either way, even if they skate on this one, Jeremy Fears, you're right about one thing. Probably unfair to me to go at you about the Angel characterization. I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
But
he's a marked man now.
He's got to be able to walk a line without letting that take away from him what makes him a special player, which is the toughness, the force, the intensity he plays with, and yet not do the stupid shit that feeds into this dumbass narrative.
Yeah.
You know, he can't do that. But there's a bigger picture in Jeremy Fears. I don't want to get bogged down in that entirely, because that was a whole team lack of effort, lack of force, lack of intensity, lack of physicality.
Yep.
And then when they finally decided, that's what I said, even before they got it close, just when Cohen had a couple of great plays in the paint early in that late comeback, I said, where the hell has this been all night? They spent 36 minutes, not anywhere close to being around the rim.
Yeah.
Not anywhere close. And all of a sudden, you're fine. This was there the whole game. Just play that way. Attack. It's flat. And, you know, I know we're going to get back to it when we talk about the keys. What was the first one? Don't let one turn into two. Guess what they did? Let one turn into two.
Yeah.
And you know what? The other thing I want to say as kind of a final thought, at least for the moment, Minnesota thoroughly deserved this win.
100%.
And I've been saying it as
we've
talked
thought
about
they've been
Minnesota.
getting robbed up to this point.
They did exactly the kinds of things they've been doing all year under Nico Medved. They've got a nothing roster. I'm telling you. That's a nothing roster. He is getting everything out of them there is to get. And those guys play hard. They played with physicality. They played with toughness. They played with effort, enthusiasm, energy, force, you name it. They did it. They deserve to win.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, I think with the Michigan game, and it becomes more clear to me now, sort of watching the Minnesota game, that Michigan State just came out. And I think, you know, look, Jeremy Fears is the emotional leader. He's the one who is sort of sets the vibe at whatever you want to say for Michigan State. He was too amped up for that game. The crowd was not as helpful to him because I think he just let it just get too much. He plays his emotion, and that's great. He gets chippy. And then he got, you know, what happened is, I think, understandable in the sense that that's just how he is not yet mature enough to recognize, you know, to control that. He's got to figure that out, because now he's a marked man, at least for the rest of the season. I mean, potentially for, you know, for a while. We all remember, if you're a Lions fan, you remember Ndamukong Suh. He'd have a tackle. It didn't matter. Even if it was a totally clean one, at some point you just get that reputation, and they're just going to assume the worst intentions for you. And so, I mean, that's just where he is now, I think.
But here's the thing, you know, assume the worst intentions. If you don't do that stuff, if you're not kicking somebody, there's nothing they can do.
Sure.
If I need to wait and see like a normal foul by Jeremy Fears get elevated unfairly before I buy into that. Because what I will say is this: is he going to get away with cheap stuff? No. But that's the point. You can't do cheap stuff. You shouldn't be doing cheap stuff anyway.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I just know that he is floppy. We talked about that before the game with, you know, Michigan game. And I think I think that reputation, in addition to now, there was, you know, he's got a couple cheap shots, right? Whatever. He has no margin for error. There's no one's going to give him the benefit of the doubt.
There's a point.
Be careful.
There's a point there that perhaps he might not get the benefit of as many calls as he's been getting on offense. Maybe. We'll have to see. I mean, he didn't get many calls tonight, I'll tell you that, which may have been part of what led to that, him losing his cool and doing what he did.
I think so. You know,
welcome to the road in the Big Ten. The foul that was committed was frankly a little borderline to me. He got mugged on that play by Reynolds. I mean, if you look at it, I actually thought that before I couldn't believe, I didn't notice the kick. So
I didn't either.
I assumed at first that's what they were looking at, because Reynolds mugged him. And I think that did get to him, But again, you want to be great, gotta find a way to get past that stuff, man. That's simple.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was, someone commented he's a dirty player. Jeremy Fear's not a dirty player, but he's an emotional player. And he certainly, as a guy, look, I mean, he just, I don't know more to add. We're not talking about that. I think,
Yeah, I don't want to get, because it all obfuscates what really matters out of this game, which was the other, however, 100, 150, 200 plays. That's the problem, not the Jeremy Fears kick.
Right. Yeah, they were just offensively, they just were not. Well, I mean, I guess
both
you said
ends,
defensively, defensively they're bad too.
Both ends. This was it was an all encompassing failure. Both ends. Yeah. They had plays. Now, give Trey Fort credit. I guess he showed you why Michigan State was interested, I think, in the portal with that barrage he unleashed late. But he had a couple of threes early in the game. And you know what he followed both of them up with? Getting destroyed defensively.
Yes, I know.
Destroyed.
Yeah.
That was a disgrace. And that's why he hadn't been playing.
Yep.
You want an answer? Right here in this game. That's why. Yep. They played him because they didn't have a choice because of Divine. And that's another thing that, boy, we finally get to a rotation maybe looking like it should. And now, who knows?
Well,
I don't know what we're dealing with.
I was trying to catch up in the game. So I had missed the first, and so I was trying to catch up in the recording. So I don't know what happened. All I know is I heard he went to
foot injury.
A foot injury. Oh, okay.
Foot injury. He came out kind of hopping, limping a little bit. It didn't look terrible. Like he wasn't grimacing in pain. There wasn't any of that, but they did take him back in the locker room. He came out and was in sweats. Who knows? I mean, we don't know the severity of it. It could be something minor that he's back for Illinois, or it could be something beyond that. We don't know. If it's something beyond that, they got a problem.
Yeah.
Because you saw tonight, so the Denim Wojcik minutes did not go well.
No, not for the most part. No.
And
that's very true.
And that's a problem when you're facing in Illinois, Purdue, so we got to hope that Divine is not out for long. I mean, they could be, geez, if God forbid, if Jeremy were to be suspended for the Illinois game on Saturday,
lose by 50.
Yeah.
Well, that brings the question. I mean, are we looking at Nick Sanders like behind Denim Wojcik?
Well, you'd have to, but it's not even worth a discussion at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm just
curious. Like,
yes, you
would.
Like
if
that, like, or they decide that they're going to let Trey Fort try to play some minutes, which,
Well, I'm just asking the question mainly because let's say I'm not even assuming Jeremy's out, but let's just say Jeremy's playing. I mean, are you just going to go with just Denim and Jeremy? I suppose we can talk about this against the Illinois pregame. You're probably not going to try Jordan Scott or someone else on the.
No.
I mean, I can't imagine anyone else.
No, that would be it. You'd have no choice. The only thing you could do is and this is the problem, because what you'd probably want to do is you'd probably want to say, look, we want to minimize those minutes. So we need to shorten the game.
Yeah, right.
Take a little bit of the load off Jeremy, but then that's taking away from the way you want to play to begin with. So it's a tough situation even with Jeremy, but we got to see where Divine is. We don't know.
Yeah. Well, someone mentioned maybe we just
I know this. He wasn't on crutches.
Right. Didn't have a boot on at that already right away.
On the road. I don't know if they would or wouldn't.
Oh, they carry boots. Everybody has boots.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah,
so
I know
we'll just have to see.
They'll get an MRI. They'll do other stuff depending what they think of it. Yeah. So someone mentioned they need to maybe call up Jay Nakin and see if he wants to come back from the G League.
Yeah. Or Jace Richardson isn't playing many minutes.
There you go.
Let's get him back.
Right. Let's just go through the individual stats. Jackson Kohler, 9 points, 4 for 9 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, 9 rebounds, assist, no turnovers. Played 27 minutes. So I think that's probably
as far as 9 rebounds.
Minute load. He had quite a few.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jax's and Carson Cooper both. Like, they've done great work to become the players that they are. They've been huge factors for this team. But those guys are right near the top of where the problems were tonight. As I say, there's no excuse. Now some of it is on, I want to be fair to Jackson. Some of it's on his teammates because Michigan State did not get him the ball inside nearly as much as they should have. He's got Cade Tyson guarding him. There's no way Cade Tyson can guard him in the post. I understand Minnesota was playing some zone, especially in the first half. They did some trapping, all that stuff. I don't care. You got to go inside. But some of it's on Jax too. I just did not think either of those guys played with anywhere close to the requisite kind of toughness, force, energy, and ability to impose yourself on a game and overwhelm an opponent as they needed to. That was really disappointing.
And then Jeremy Fears, 10 points, 4 for 11 from the field, missed all 3 of his threes, just 2 of 2 from the line, 2 rebounds, 11 assists to 2 turnovers, had, of course, the technical, 2 steals, played 32 minutes. Again, minute load, probably what you want for him. But, I still feel like, Izzo took him out just was like, I don't think he was even going to put him back in, except that game got close to the end. And
I think you're right.
Back in.
I think
he's going to keep him out and just say, screw it. We're just going to teach him a lesson. And you just can't play that way.
There was a play. And again, this is part of what I'm talking about. Like it was a basketball play, but you could say it was reckless. He went for a block and it didn't get called, but he kind of grazed the guy's head. I think it was Reynolds. And it was right after that they took him out. And I don't know for sure whether it was related to that play, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. That Izzo was sitting him down and saying, figuring that the game is out of hand anyway, and saying you can't do that. I don't know whether that was the case, but just considering especially the level that Jeremy's, the only saving grace out of this whole goddamn night is that it ought to stop cold the ludicrous NBA talk I've heard about him in the last couple of days, which it blows my mind. I guess in this world, you never say never to anything, but there's no evidence at all that that's any even remote concern at this point. And I'm not talking about where his head might be. I'm talking about where the NBA's head is. He doesn't shoot well enough yet.
No,
but
not there.
Anyway, very disappointing night from Jeremy. And if you're going to be the leader, and he is, of a great team, you got to be better than this across the board. Your play, your decision-making, all of it. Your ability to control your emotions, all of it.
Yep. I mean, he looked like a sophomore today. I think is kind of what it felt like. Jeremy Scott, 15 points, 5 of 8 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, 2 for 4 from the free throw line. It's about the only negative you could say. Just 2 rebounds, both offensive, a couple of assists, a couple of turnovers, a couple of steals, 29 minutes. He was really good. I think he had as many defensive breakdowns as anyone else in the game. He really got, but overall, I think a good game for him and good for a first start. It's, I think, encouraging. Just, unfortunately, the rest of the team just sort of didn't follow along. He had a couple like near steals, and I think there was that one play where he tipped away. It looked like it was going to be a steal, and the ball kind of bounced around, ended up in Minnesota's hands. They ended up scoring. That was late in the second half. Sometime
and one.
It just felt like that was sort of like the way the game is going. You're touch low, you're not aggressive, you're not fast enough, not getting the ball, and it just doesn't work out that way. So that again,
well,
all credit to Minnesota, they deserve to win this game, and it was but that just sort of emblematic of the game.
Normally, plays like that, loose balls, go to the team that's playing harder, and they did.
Yep,
you're right. It was a play that was there to be made, and Jordan almost made the play. Here's the thing. Jordan was really good offensively. Did a lot of good things in this game. What you saw in this one, though, and it's not going to be every time out, but there are matchups, and tonight was one of them. Reynolds is not a shooting threat, really. Where he gets his work done for the most part is inside the paint. And you saw why tonight. I mean, he's built. He's a tough kid. And he abused Jordan in the post.
Yeah.
And there have been Jordan Scott for a freshman, I think, is really advanced defensively overall. I think he plays hard. I think his length really helps him, and I think he's smart. So all the elements are there. But there are times, and tonight was one of them, when you see what happens when an 18-year-old is guarding a 22 or 23-year-old.
Yeah.
And it just, who has a little bit of a physical edge on him in some ways, and certainly an experience edge. And so that hurt, that was the thing. I don't know how many times between he and Trey, they'd get a bucket and then Minnesota comes right down the other end and goes at those guys and answers. It happened repeatedly. And you just can't have it. But overall, yeah, I thought Jordan certainly, let's put it this way. I don't think, given the greater scheme of things, he did anything to lose that starting spot. Let's put it that way.
No, totally agree. Yeah, someone actually, Keith Johnson just commented and said, per Chris Solari, it looks like that Izzo said that the ankle injury did not look good, quote unquote. So,
well,
Divine finished with 3 points, 1-1 from the field. He had that layup. He also got fouled and split his free throws. And
it came
a couple rebounds.
It came early in the game, unfortunately, because he was the one guard at that stage of the game that seemed actually interested, one player that actually seemed interested in attacking.
Yeah, right. A couple of times, which we've talked about. He's so good at getting slippery, kind of getting in there, but he was, especially that zone was not like that impossible to get inside. I think, especially from the 2 spot. Yeah.
They did a terrible job of attacking it. That was, yeah. But Divine, look, if that's, I want to see what Solari has to say here. Yeah, foot injury. Well, he said it's a foot injury, not an ankle injury. Doesn't look good, but he does not know the severity of it just yet. Yeah, so we got to see. Yeah, and he said, and I'm reading Izzo's quote. Obviously, we're not watching the press conference, but he said, going back to Jeremy, when somebody publicly comes out and says something about a guy, that happens. That's Jeremy's fault. Are they baiting him? Of course. And that's it. We've talked about how skilled Jeremy is in baiting opponents into fouls, and he is. He's tremendous at it. But it goes the other way as well. You can't allow yourself to get baited into stuff. So, look, if Divine is out for a while, that creates a real problem. And Denim Wojcik's going to play those minutes. I know that. The question is, how many of them will there be?
Yeah.
And that's going to impact potentially how Michigan State has to play, which is not great because this is not, as we know, this is not a great half-court offense team. You want to have the ability to run, and you question it. I mean, and here's the thing. It's fine to say, I don't care. Play Jeremy those minutes. Play him 38 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen
nothing at the end.
Seen in 2 losses what happens when you go that way. So I don't think they can do that. Yeah.
Well, then let's go down the list. Carson Cooper, no points, 0 for 3 from the field, 5 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, 1 assist, 1 turnover, played 20 minutes. I mean, at times he looked fine, but I don't know. He just...
I don't think he ever looked fine.
I mean, yeah, I guess when I was watching...
He didn't score.
Yeah, right.
He didn't score. He had 5 rebounds. No, it was a terrible game from Carson. I love Carson Cooper. That was a bad game. I'm positive he'd tell you that himself. He lost his minutes to Cam Ward. Rightly so.
Yeah, right.
You're a senior. You got it. And you're playing a guy 6'8", 220. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's a joke.
Cone Carr, 16 points, 5 for 11 from the field, and misses 1 3-point attempt, 6 for 7 from the line, 6 rebounds, 3 offensive. He had a couple of assists. He had 1 turnover. Played only 28 minutes, actually. He was sitting a long time in that second half, I feel like.
Because he wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, no, I know. He was getting... and I guess the only thing you'd say is there were a couple that, he just should have finished at the rim that he didn't, but he was about the only one doing anything for a while, for at least a good 4-minute stretch there in the second half when they made that, 20-6 run to kind of make the game interesting. So I don't know.
He was incredible in the last 4 minutes. That's the Cohen Carr that we thought we would see with regularity, and we have not. So we're sitting here, what is it, February 4th? Decision time. So that's simple. Decision time. You going to be that guy, or are you going to be the guy who played the first 36 minutes? Because if Cohen Carr is attacking like that, and the ball's just not dropping, he's dunks are going against the back rim and careening off, there's the ball spinning out, fine. You live with it. But he has to play that way. He has to be that guy. That guy makes his team very, very different. The guy in the first 36 minutes, I used the word a few times tonight, pedestrian.
Yeah.
Real simple. And it's got nothing to do with hitting threes. It doesn't even have anything to do with making free throws, which he did decently tonight. It's got to do with energy and a desire and a follow through to impose yourself on a game physically. Because when he does that, people can't handle him. He's too much.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah, he showed that again and again. That one portion, he just was destroying them.
I understand.
Which we saw in the NCAA tournament, right? I mean, we saw that all the time in the tournament.
That's it. If the guy that you saw tonight in those last 4 minutes is pretty much the guy you saw against Ole Miss.
Yep.
That's the guy he's got to be. I love all these guys. They're so easy to root for. I understand some of this comes off as anger and hostility, and I'm very frustrated. I think most listeners probably are. I love watching Cohen Carr play. I want the best for him. I want him to have an NBA future. He's got to be that guy. And it's all up to him. I really believe that. As opposed the threes, all that nonsense people get hung up on, it matters, but it's at the margins for me. The stuff that they always say you worry about the stuff you can control. Well, you can't necessarily control whether jumpers go in. There's a luck element to that to some extent, and I believe he puts the work in. So I'm not worried about that. But the mentality, the approach to a game, that's within your control. And he's got to be that guy. I've said it before. He's got to channel BJ Dawson. That's the model. That's what makes Cohen Carr great if he plays with the kind of intensity a guy like that played with. Because he's got even more athletic horsepower than BJ had, and that's saying something.
All right. Kurtang, 3 points, hit 1 3 out of 4 tries, missed another 2-pointer, 2 rebounds, 1 offensive, had an assist, had a turnover, played 18 minutes. It wasn't,
pedestrian.
He's got to hit the shots, and he, defensively is, let's just go. Trey Ford, which is a surprising performance, 12 points, 4 for 8 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, had a couple of rebounds, had an assist, 15 minutes.
Here's the thing.
Scored, but he gave scores too,
Here's the thing. If Divine is out for a while,
it sounds like he will be. No,
he's going right. That would be our assumption at the moment.
Yeah,
he's going to play. He will play minutes like he did tonight because there's no choice.
Yep,
they have to play him, right? Somehow, some way, Trey Fort's got to figure out how to guard somebody. The shots are great, and I understand. You saw tonight what the offense, and we've seen it a couple of other times this year, what the offensive upside is for him, because he is a guy unlike anybody else they have. Kurtang is another guy that is not afraid to take contested shots, and he can hit them. Mm-hmm. But Trey Fort is different even than Kerr, because Kerr doesn't have really the ability to do it off the dribble. Trey Fort does have the offensive capability to just be a bucket getter. He's the one guy in that group that can do that. But he gives away so much defensively. And tonight it happened twice. His first 2 made threes, which came before the last 4 minutes, they were immediately followed up by Minnesota attacking him and dusting him. Both of them.
Yeah.
And that, in a nutshell, is why Trey Fort hasn't played more. It was those 2 plays. So
It is
I don't
amazing
know.
how that, and I would say even the other times he's played, when you watch, and he doesn't give up he's actually caused a problem in the rotation, which ends up causing problems somewhere else, that their score comes, even if it's not his guy who's scoring.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a
Yep.
breakdown and it leads to right. Um, somehow, some way, it's got to improve. Either that or he just becomes such a force offensively that he's out shooting the problems. And that's not where Tom Izzo wants to live, but he might not have a choice for 12, 13 minutes a night.
Well, and Ford certainly hasn't shown that. I mean, tonight, I guess you could say he's
Tonight
12
he
points,
did
15
in the
minutes,
end.
but this is like about the
There
only,
have been a couple games. Oregon, he did. He hit some big shots in that game.
yeah, in a few minutes. Yep. And Kentucky.
If I remember correctly, right. Kentucky, he played well. So he's had occasional moments. The thing is, most of the year, the leash has been so short that when the first defensive breakdown comes, boom, the hook. Yeah. And it's like Showtime at the Apollo and he's off the stage. Sandman came to get him. They're probably not going to be in that position now. They're going to have to let him go a little bit more. The leash is going to get longer out of necessity. And, he's got got to find a way. Got to find a way.
I mean, you always hope sometimes performances like, the end of the game is enough to get Trey Ford to sort of some confidence back, and then he can just, channel that into something more going forward. But we'll have to see, because we've seen these performances occasion from him, and then the next time out, he's just a zeros. Speaking of zeros, Daniel Mojic, nothing offensive. He had an assist and a turnover, played 5 minutes. And we already kind of talked about it. He really wasn't the answer, and makes
but he's going to, now it's, I mean, we cut back the other way, and now you can, I suppose, if you want to make the argument, boy, thank God they played him those minutes in December, because now at least you think he's got a chance. He's not coming in totally cold, right?
Yeah.
They have had games, multiple games, where they survived those minutes. And they've just got to figure out how to do that again. I mean, what hurt tonight was, of course, they were already way down when he had to play those minutes.
Right.
If you're working in a different scenario, it's a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I mean, look, any team like Minnesota, they're not as good as Michigan State. They won the game, no question. But teams like that, any team, you start giving them, they get some confidence. They start hitting some shots they weren't hitting early in the season. They've had kind of down on the luck. They're due, right? All these things, they start feeling good, and then you just can't catch up to him. And a guy like Denham is not going to be the kind of guy who's going to put pressure on him,
right?
Because it is 4-on-5 and offensively when it comes to him. Now he's able to sort of get some stuff going. Like with his dribble, he can sometimes get some assist stuff. But like you said, defensively, he really struggles out there. He got called for that one hold because he just lost. He just couldn't hang on to stick with his guy.
I was grateful for that because it stopped the clock. They were able to get him out of there. I really was. I was like, thank God. Because it could have gone. That was in the first half. That was at a point where they weren't calling many fouls. And that first half moved very quickly because of that. And I was concerned they'd let it go another minute and a half without a stoppage, and MSU could be down 6 more points.
And then finally, Jesse McCullough, he played 1 minute. He came in and gave up like an easy 2 or something. Like he lost his guy, and he got the quick hook, and he was gone, and he never came back. Because this is a game we didn't expect him to play much anyway, because of just the matchups
were
are
not
just
there for him.
It'll
be different.
He will play a ton against Illinois for sure.
It'll be different I think it will be different.
Yeah.
On Saturday. Absolutely right. I think that's just the deal with Jesse right now, is that it's kind of matchup dependent as to whether he's playing 1 minute or playing 8 minutes.
Well, one team that's not matchup dependent are the Brothers Just Gutters. Those guys can take care of whatever the job is. Doesn't matter who's out there trying to stop them. They can take care of the leaks, the drips, the problems with your gutters. Whether it's your home or your business, head on over to the Brothers Just Gutters. They can take care of it, whether you're on the east side or the west side of the state. If you're up in the UP, sorry, you're out of luck. But right now, the brothers can take care of it. Give them a call. You can get a hold of them at our support page at the Final Four. It's now theschedule.com/support. There you get 10% off. You mentioned Final Four. And they, of course, support the player that Michigan State needs to keep in the gutter, who was Cade Tyson. He finished with 17 points. He's 4 for 12 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, 6 for 7 from the line, 2 rebounds, a couple of assists, no turnovers, no steals, no blocks. He wasn't as overwhelming. He certainly wasn't Minnesota's best player today, which is maybe the problem. that he still had a
Yep.
pretty good game, and he wasn't, although he wasn't super efficient. I mean, 412 is not great, but he still got enough done, especially with, as well as Crocker Johnson was playing, especially in the first half, and then even Reynolds was. I mean, everybody was kind of beating up on Michigan State today. I mean, Crocker Johnson with 22 points.
They did a credible job against Cade Tyson. I actually think I was maybe a little unfair to Carson in the sense that I thought Carson defensively was okay. Tyson didn't get a lot of good looks. I mean, 4 for 12 from the floor. And yeah, you could say, well, he went 6 for 7 at the line, but he averages 8 free throw attempts per game. So he didn't even quite hit his average in that area. I thought MSU was okay. They didn't keep him in the gutter, but they were okay. And if you'd given me that line for him coming into the game, I absolutely would have thought Michigan State wins. No question.
Right. You wouldn't have expected 22.
I figured they needed Cade Tyson somewhere near his very, very best. And they didn't get that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the best for Who Cleans the Glass Best by brought to you by Swedish Squad. They do the best work on the glass. Michigan State did not do the best in this game. If you need your windows cleaned, head on over to our support page at the Final Four schedule.com/support. Of course, you can get a hold of Troy and his team. They will take care of you. They're going to take care of your windows. They'll clean, whether it's your business, your home, whatever it might be. They can get out there and take care of it. 15% off just by mentioning Final Four when you get your estimate. Call them today. They do a great job. They've taken care of my house, both the interior and the exterior part of the windows. They've done the slides, the screens, all the stuff you'd never clean on your own. They get in the ladder, so you don't have to. Contact me today. And by my count, so it was tied 10 all going into this. I had first pick on the snake draft. So let's see, Kohler had 9, and I had Scott. He had 2, and you had Cooper and Carr with 5 and 6. So we tied 11-11. So I guess it's kind of I lost serve there. You didn't quite break me, but I didn't pick anything up with the first pick on this one.
I got a break. You didn't pick Ward.
Right.
That would have been enough.
Yeah. That would have been enough. Yeah. Well, I was right that Scott played a lot. I just was wrong that he didn't get awards, and that was the difference there. So 8 games to go now. It's all tied up. We each get to pick first once or 4 times each. So it's all just comes down to, I don't know, luck, I guess. So we'll see who managed to pull things off here. And that brings us, of course, to 5 Keys to the Game, brought to you by Nudge Printing. Nudge Printing. So a couple cool things going with Nudge Printing right now. One is there's new drawing for this month of February. You can see on your screen if you're looking, but it's his best product yet. It's $120. What is it? Kelly? Oh, I can't remember the name of it is what it is now. I'll get that next time, but it's a Spartan basketball Sparty. The black ones, you see the coaching staff wears them, the quarter zip. It's really, really cool. Free drawing. You just go ahead and over to nudgeprinting.com/win, and you can enter for free a chance to win that. Of course, while you're there, you can check out any other great products at Nudge. Of course, our gear there is as well, like the sweatshirt I'm wearing right now. You can get 20% off just by typing in TFFINOTS at checkout. All kinds of stuff there at Nudge. They're also launching a Jackson Kohler line of apparel, which is, I don't have a picture of yet, but it's basically him screaming like he does when he hits his 3. So pretty cool. And I think we're pretty sure we're going to have Jeff Kohler on next week at some point. So we get maybe the inside scoop on what's going on with Jackson. And now that he's almost done, I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for a dad to have your kid go through 4 years and now just get near the end, because I know he makes most of the games. I think he's going to be there for the Illinois game. So, so the first key of the game was, do not let 1 turn into 2. Well, I guess we know the answer to that one.
Yeah, I don't think there's pretty obvious. Whether that's the reason why they came out the way they played, I can't say for sure. You'd have to be inside the locker room to really have a good feel for that. But we did what you needed to see was what we saw in the last 4 minutes for 40 minutes, and we got it for 4. Yeah, and it's that simple.
Yeah, this is, I don't know. I guess it's one of these things we see that we get this way in the season, and you're right. It happens. It feels like it happens every year. Don't know why. It's not planned. It just suddenly things just get broken. And then usually things just kind of get figured out. And that's generally how it works with Michigan State. Unfortunately, at this sort of year, if you want to have aspirations for the Big Ten, obviously now it's life support. You can't afford these sorts of mistakes. They didn't have them last year. And I would say this year's team is better than last year's team. I mean, I felt that way. Maybe tonight I don't feel that way. But I think overall they're better. But of course, the Big Ten is much better, especially at the top this year than they were last year. So there are too many teams at the top that you have to kind of jump over. So anyway, second key to the game, turnovers. Well, not a disaster, I don't think, for Michigan. I guess I'll have to look at that. I didn't write that, but I think what was the final?
9.
Yeah, 9 turnovers, 6 for Minnesota. So points off turnovers, it was 7 to 11, so a little edge for Minnesota by 4 points, but it wasn't huge.
No,
it's not
it wasn't a disaster.
It wasn't. It's more the margin of the game, I suppose, but it certainly did feel like that was what cost them the game. Although again, they tend to have a lot in the first half. They tend to, the second possession, I think Jordan Scott stepped out of bounds just on the side, and just those things, there's missed opportunities, and then you're down 5-2, then it's like 7-2, and I don't know. I mean, you can't afford these sorts of things, obviously, in a game, when it's close, and that's what you get in Big Ten, especially on the road.
Yep.
All right. So third key of the game was the boards. Michigan State with a gigantic edge on the boards. So overall 39-23 edge, 13-3 edge on the offensive end. They rebounded offensively at a 40.6%. Minnesota 12.5%. Second chance points 15-3. So 13 offensive rebounds, 15 points. That's pretty good when you're more than 1-1. That's what they didn't do the last game, I think. But obviously not enough. I mean, they had,
the stuff that I'm talking about didn't show up on the glass. It showed up in terms of loose balls, in terms of play at both ends in the paint, those types of things. So the rebounding was fine. And they had a 15-3 edge and second chance points. So statistically, they did the things you would expect to happen in this game, but yet at the same time, it didn't feel like a great effort. And I don't know how to explain that, because the stats say it was pretty good, actually, what you would want to see, but it didn't feel that way to me watching it.
Well, I think that's just a reflection of just, the loose balls. And so it's just getting places that they just weren't playing as hard. And for whatever reason, I mean,
they were second best a lot of times tonight.
Yes. Yep. So fourth key of the game was rotation. Of course, it changed two ways. One is Scott started the rotation, which, felt normal. Divine came in, sort of all kind of felt normal. That wasn't starting great in the game. And then Divine gets hurt. And I mean, again, we'll see how long he's out for, probably at least a game or two, it sounds like, but we'll see. So the rotation, we didn't expect to have to talk about it that way, but it's, maybe really weird and sort of, I'm guessing it's to be the key of the game, the next game too.
Well, we got what we hoped for, what I hoped for at least, in terms of Jordan Scott being in the starting lineup. And I think overall, even with the defensive issues he had, you got what you wanted to see and thought you would see. He played hard. He played very efficiently on offense, did a lot of good things. And so that was a positive. We don't know, and we might not know. Who knows where Divine's at? We might not ever get to find out this year. Would this have worked better for Michigan State? Divine's got to be able to play in order for us to know that. So that's a super, super unfortunate thing on a lot of levels. We just got to hope for the best, and we'll see. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what Michigan State's facing is not unique in the sense that all kinds of teams have injuries. They have forced to have guys not be point guards and stuff. Obviously, point guard is the most important position for Michigan State offensively, and probably defensively this year too. And so it's going to call more for fears. I mean, what it really means is when Jeremy's out there, he's got to be his absolute best to allow you that margin. So when Wojcik goes out there, that he can hold down the fort, maybe, not lose too much ground, right? I mean, that's kind of how it's going to have to work.
You can't ever have him in early foul trouble. That can't happen. And that's
happened.
That's happened not a lot, but a couple of times.
Two times.
Yeah. You can't have that. And obviously I tend to think, if it were me, I think the way I would be approaching it is probably trying to find ways to allow for him to stay on the floor a little more often, which means slowing down the pace a little bit. But that's walking a fine line, and I don't know how much you can do that when you're already in February. That's tough. So the bottom line is, if there's no Divine, you're going to have to live with Dunham Wojcik probably giving you 7 minutes, 8 minutes, if they try to keep Jeremy more or less where he's been. And I don't advise going, if they're going to play the same way they play, I don't advise going more than that for him. We've seen what happens. He's not going to be effective in the last 4 or 5 minutes of a game if you're pushing him that way. So 32, that's about your sweet spot. And so that means a lot of minutes. Again, the other option would be they try to toggle it together by committee, but I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to give Denham those minutes, and we've just got to hope that they find ways to survive it the way they were, in January for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's
it'll be
tough
interesting
spot,
to see how
but I got to be
well.
honest. I mean, most teams, very, very few teams would be in great shape if they got to play their third point guard real minutes. It's not unusual. Michigan State last year was an extremely unusual team the way they were constructed. That's not normal.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is that sometimes you're lucky enough that you have a guy who's essentially a wing, but they've got just enough ball handling in them that you could kind of manufacture a semi-competent point guard for a few minutes a night. They don't really have that option because their wings are not those kind of players, like Kurtang, Trey Fort's probably the closest, but Jesus, you got enough there just trying to get him to be competent defensively that you're going to ask him to initiate offense for 5-6 minutes a night. I don't think so. So that's just kind of where they're at.
I think so. So fifth and final key of the game was Tyson. And, as you mentioned, Tyson was kept himself. He wasn't certainly the one, he didn't dominate the game. And you're right. I think
not at all.
He scored, but it was definitely in a sort of backseat sort of fashion day, which, just because the other players in Minnesota really stepped up and did what they needed to do to take out Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, he was solid, but he wasn't great. He certainly wasn't dominant. I mean, Crocker Johnson was the guy. And look, Crocker Johnson goes 4 for 8 from 3. Mm-hmm. I've got news for you if you haven't seen Minnesota play this year. That's not who he is. He's a 32% shooter from 3 on decent volume, but he's rarely, if ever, hoisting 8 attempts a game. He was feeling it tonight. Yeah. And sometimes that happens.
And you got to recognize that too, right? As a
absolutely.
Defense.
And they did not do a great job, I think, adjusting to that. The Minnesota shot, what did they shoot? 10 for 21 from 3.
Yeah, there's 47%.
48%. 48%. That is beyond hot for them. This is not a good shooting team.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about this is a limited roster. It's a limited roster in terms of talent, in terms of skill. But sometimes you're going to have a night where it's just going for you. And they had that this night. And the fact they were able to combine that with outworking Michigan State was enough to get them over the line. Barely.
Yeah.
I got to say, Nico Medved in those last 3 minutes must have felt like, what have I done to deserve this? Because he's had so many of these.
Yeah.
Where they have a lead and they just can't finish. And it really did. I mean, against all odds, for as much as you had no reason to expect Minnesota could shoot threes that way, you had no reason to expect that Michigan State could come back from the dead like that and get it. What did they get it as? Did they get it as close as 2?
It was down to 2, and then they fouled and then hit 2 free throws, I think, and then was
that's never ever would have thought it, but that had to be going through his head. Like, what do we have to do to win a game? And they did just enough. Well, credit to them because they deserved it.
Yeah, that's been coming for a while, right? I mean,
it has. We talked about it, and they talked about it on the broadcast. They have been so close on the majority of these games in the 7-game losing streak that you knew they were likely to break it against somebody quickly. You just hoped it wouldn't be tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, someone was coming, but somewhat Kurtang, but I'm ignore it. So that brings the Fanduel player of the game. We'll see if, I don't know if people have been voting. I know I hit just a couple people voted. So
yeah, I wouldn't.
Who did you think with the
look, statistically, you would probably give it to Cohen Carr, but I can't because I only saw that Cohen Carr for 4 minutes. So I'm going to go with Jordan Scott.
Yeah. And that was a split. We only had a couple votes. I think people are as frustrated. You didn't want to vote either. Yeah. We had a vote for Jordan Scott and a vote for
Cohen.
Trey Fort. So those are the two that people picked.
Yeah. No, sorry. I can't go that far.
Yeah.
I saw those defensive plays.
Yes.
And I understand Jordan, but there's a difference. Jordan, when Jordan got beat defensively, he was actually playing reasonable defense. It's just he doesn't yet have the strength or the experience to be able to handle a guy like Reynolds, who was really working him where he felt he had an advantage. That wasn't, Jordan Scott just lost his mind and blew an aside. It wasn't that. Trey Fort was just out of position, not a clue. That's what that was. There's a difference.
He closes out and not under control. And that's, then you end up just going right past the person. When your base is not solid, you're kind of
the Big Ten, man. You can't do
that. I know. So anyway, but make sure you head over to FanDuel, and they'll double your money when you first start your bets. And obviously Michigan State did not cover this game since they were favored, and that did not happen. And I am I wouldn't say 100%, but I'm going to be pretty close to 100% certain they are not going to be favored in the game in East Lansing. I think they still were, maybe barely.
I'm sure, they were coming into this one. Yeah, but Illinois is putting a hurting on Northwestern.
Yeah, they are going to help. Really
that's going to help them in the analytics, and Michigan State will take a little bit of a dive. I suspect you're right. I wouldn't be surprised to see Illinois maybe a 2-point, 3-point favorite, something like that.
Yeah.
It won't be much.
It'll be something. And, there's a good interesting team to look at when you look at injuries. I mean, they lost Boswell, who is arguably their best perimeter defensive player. I mean, maybe that's not arguable. He is. And they have defensively still been really good. And now they don't use a point guard the same as Michigan State. And that's the one thing about the losing a point guard. Yeah, he's a backup point guard, but it is probably a more important position at Michigan State than is other places. And so it's a harder loss for Michigan State to probably handle than it is for other teams. But, there are other teams that can bring you just have to slow down and you can't score on the break. And the problem is, like you mentioned, half court offense just not as good in this team. They need those fast break points, which they didn't get many of today, just 9, which I think is partly because Minnesota didn't turn the ball over, but also, I don't know, they're just not able to get anything going. They got that 1-3 off Kerr, and that looked smooth. They just didn't get enough of those breaks. All right. So, boy, a ton of talk. People just like in the dumps right now. I don't even want to go over everything. Someone just said that Izzo said the Big Ten's over. It's now we're just focusing on March. I don't know. Did he really say that? Maybe he said something like that at the press conference. I'm not sure. I haven't had a chance to see it. But that's kind of where I am. I mean, I don't know how you can be. I mean, they run the table, go 8-0. Well, then I guess
But you got it. But that's the thing. You've got to play games at Michigan, at Purdue, at Wisconsin. That would be remarkable to do that. So I don't think that's very realistic. That said, the last time I said something similar to that was in 2020.
Right.
And Michigan
when they
State
had no chance
ended
of
up rallying to win a share of the Big Ten title. When it looked
I was thinking
when they looked like they were dead in the water.
Yeah.
And they managed to rally and grab a share of the title with Maryland and Wisconsin, I believe, 3-way tie. I think right now, if you're Michigan State, it's got to be about how do we become the best version of ourselves that we can be for March, which is the usual MO at Michigan State, but it also often accompanies how do we win a championship. And I just think it's, with the schedule the remainder of the way, you couldn't really afford won like this. You just couldn't. I
Yeah.
would have argued you probably couldn't afford losing a game like at Wisconsin, which is not necessarily going to be a gimme, given that they've
No.
been playing a little better. So right now it's about what can you do Saturday? And I just had somebody on the Spartan Mag board ask me, do you think they have any chance on Saturday? And I said, if the team that played the last 4 minutes shows up for 40, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I believe that team can do what they've been doing most of the year. It's unfortunate because this team really has, for most of the season, we've said it a number of times, played with a lot of maturity and a lot of focus. And all of a sudden, last, 10 days, 7 days,
3 games.
8 days, whatever it is, that slipped.
Yep.
And they got to get back to that.
Some critics would argue and say, well, the reason for that is because they're not playing, before they were not playing tougher teams. And there's no question. They were playing an easier.
Played North Carolina, played Arkansas. I saw those games.
Absolutely.
Kentucky.
But I'm just talking about like the Big Ten, the Big
played
Ten
Duke,
games.
and we're right there with them. Blew out Iowa, blew out Indiana. Those are NCAA tournament teams. I mean, no, I don't accept that. Today wasn't about, they're playing a great opponent. Rutgers wasn't about that.
No, that's true.
One of the 3 games we're talking about was a good opponent. So yeah, that's dumb. I don't accept that.
Yeah. Yeah. And as far as ways to fix this coming into the season, I don't know. I mean, I think, well, we'll see. We've got 8 games left and things can certainly change. Narratives can change very quickly. Long ways. It seems
a lot of basketball to play.
Seems like forever.
A lot of progress that can be made. But you've got to actually make it, and you got to learn. You have to learn lessons. And to me, the big lesson here is if you don't play with that kind of energy and that kind of fight and that kind of compete level, there have been Michigan State teams in the past that could afford to Cadillac it a little bit and still get by. This isn't one of them.
Yeah.
Just like last year was not one of them. They got to bring it pretty close to 100% of the time. And if they do that, then they have enough. But they got to do it. And tonight, you see what happens when you don't do that.
Well, I will tell you the one thing that I find encouraging is that the end for Cone Carr, he's a senior, or not a senior, but he's just one of the senior leaders on the team. He's a junior, obviously. But maybe that was what I keep waiting for the click. We talked about this with like the 5 men, the bigs, you got to bring consistency. You got to sort of work your way in. And I feel like his thing is where we've talked all season. It's been consistency. He has some games that are great, but he's never put together more than like a half, I think, where he just is like dominant. Like even when he has he's had his really good games, he's been like really good. And then he's been not invisible, but sort of like just around, and I'm not sure what it is from the beginning of the game. Cause the beginning of the game, he's sort of like drifting around on the outside, around the perimeter. He gets the ball, passes it, or he maybe takes a dribble. And if he doesn't have anything to go in to get to the rack, he sort of just passes it out. I don't know what the difference between that is and the end of this game. Was it just Minnesota was playing differently, or is it just a mindset with him that he just decided, I'm just going to go get it right now? I mean, that's my impression, but I absolutely don't know.
It's the latter. No, there's nothing Minnesota was doing. That's what I said. When they started attacking the rim, all of a sudden, late in that game, I'm like, where has this been for nearly 2 hours? Where has it been? Because the opportunities were there all along. All you had to do was force it, make it happen. I don't mean force it in terms of doing more than you're capable of doing. I mean impose yourself. They were all there.
Yeah.
When he has a putback dunk off a missed shot, he can do that anytime he wants. Just got to attack it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going to have to bring that for sure Saturday, and that'll be a good gut check to see what this team is going to be.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Again, Illinois, as bad as they look right now, they could easily win that game, and then
Illinois is going to come in. Illinois is up 45 with about 6 minutes to play or something.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, they're destroying Northwestern, but that's not a shocker. I mean, maybe the margin is a little bit, but Illinois is playing extremely well. Nobody's got 2 better road wins than at Nebraska and at Purdue.
Right.
I mean, they are.
I think they're the best team in the Big Ten now. Yeah,
they are right now. but here's the tough part. Might they be peaking?
Well,
You
right.
don't want to peak in early February.
Mm-hmm.
And as we know, in the Big Ten, you're as good as your next 40 minutes. And there's no guarantees in anything. I know this. I know they've generally had a lot of trouble at Breslin. They don't typically win. Even with good teams, they don't typically win. And I know that this Michigan State team, if it plays the way it needs to, absolutely can compete against Illinois and win that game. Absolutely. Today does not change that.
Right.
So, and I would have said it yesterday. I think most people would have said it yesterday. So we'll see. I'm not flying the white flag. But they gotta, but it's down to Michigan State. It's down to, like I said at the outset, who do you want to be? You want to be the guys in the last 4 minutes, or you want to be the guys in the first 36? Because that will determine it. If you're the guys who play the first 36 minutes, Illinois wins that by double digits.
Right.
If you're the guys in the last 4, let's see what happens.
Yeah. I wonder too with Illinois, with losing Boswell for at least an extended period of time, he's going to come back, obviously. What does that mean for them going forward? Like when he comes back, because right now they're playing so well.
It creates potential both directions, and you never know until you're actually in it. I mean, I can tell you, I remember going back to the first thing that always comes to my mind when you talk about that. It was a different point in the season. But if you remember Denzel Valentine, that unbelievable senior year he got hurt and missed a couple of games. He missed the Oakland game, might have missed a game or two in Big Ten play. I think he missed a game against Iowa that they lost. He was out for a little bit, not terribly long, not as long as Boswell. But when they got him back in, and this is a guy who's a 4-year player on an experienced team and who was great, just great. And it took them a couple of weeks to feel like they were fully reacclimated to him being back in the mix. And that it wasn't even that, Denzel's struggling. It was that the team just didn't feel 100% clicked just yet.
There's a chemistry.
So, yes, it is. And in the Illinois situation, you're going to be talking about a team having played without him for about a month. That's long enough that, boy, you got a different rotation that's now settled in.
Mm-hmm.
And not that they weren't already putting a lot on Keaton Wagler's hands, but it's even more now. And so how do they pull all that together? Now the flip side is if they can pull it off, if Boswell comes back and it just
even
kind of
better,
seamlessly fits, then they're clearly even better.
Yeah.
But I do think that's always a challenge, and it's an underrated thing that people don't look at very often when they try to evaluate these games. Illinois is up 49 now with 5 minutes left. People just assume, well, that guy just slips back in seamlessly, and it does not work that way in practice very often. It is usually a process. And the other problem here is they're not going to have a lot of games to work him back in before the tournament.
Right.
They'll have a few. If he comes back when they were talking about, maybe he plays, 4 games or so, I think.
Big Ten tournament, you got 1 or 2
or the
or
Big
3
Ten
maybe.
tournament. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might have as many as 7, but maybe not. And that's if he comes back in time. That's not a lot of time to work through. You'd ideally like to have maybe another week or 2, but whatever. They got to play the hand they're dealt. And right now they got to feel good about where they are with or without him.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll come down to whether fears can mature and the team can decide what they're going to do. And
I will drop one more note from the press conference. Izzo mentioned that he's not certain yet whether Jeremy will start. So clearly he is taking this seriously in terms of it being and a time where Jeremy's got to learn some lessons about maturity. And I think that's good. I think that's warranted. Yeah. And, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, and obviously, if you had Divine, then it'd be a lot easier decision to not start Jeremy.
Well, he's not going to be bothered by that. He'll believe me, if he thinks that's what Jeremy Fears needs. When he's saying not start him, I don't think he's talking about not playing him the first 12 minutes. He's literally talking about not starting him, because that symbolically will mean something. Yeah. It will mean something to him. But he'll absolutely do it with Denim Wojcik. I have no doubt about that.
Well, it'll be interesting for sure. And that if you want to head over to our support page, that'd be great. You can check out the Brothers Just Gutters, Nudge Printing, Squeegee Squad of Grand Rapids, and of course, Fanduel. I will be at the pep rally before the Saturday game. So at least I'll get some good food in before the game, listen to Izzo talk. And I'm sure he's not going to be super happy. It'll be kind of interesting. Most of the times they'll have one usually on a Saturday before one of the big games. It'll be interesting to see what he's talking about before the game, because the other times they've been kind of rolling. And so this is a team that's not rolling. It's kind of lurching. And so, and with, as you mentioned, there's possibility of a change. Starting lineup again. We'll see what happens.
I got to tell you though, and I'm just saying this based on experience of watching it over the decades and gut feel. These moments are oftentimes ones where Michigan State absolutely shows up. I understand people getting pessimistic because of the level that Illinois has been playing at and where Michigan State's been at the last week or so.
Right.
But I'm telling you, I don't rule that out, Michigan State winning that game at all.
I certainly hope so. I might have to have a couple of those extra green, whatever green Sparty drinks are. I'm not sure what they call them before the game. Yeah, someone asked me if I get a media pass. Actually, I could get a media pass. However, because of the fact that I'm not around going to practice all the time, I'm not going to press conferences. They don't really want to give out media passes to people who aren't really like legit media. Like, they have podcasters and people who are there. And we obviously, we're top 100 basketball podcasts in America. We're definitely the number one just sold Michigan State basketball podcast. But I'm not going to go to the press conference. I actually have another job. So and I'm in Grand Rapids. So I appreciate the sentiment. And and I can't get one and then give it to someone else. So that's also not going to happen. So if you're at the if you're at the pregame pep rally beforehand, come by, say hi to me. We'll commiserate a little bit, and hopefully things turn out well for Michigan State. So until next time, the Final Four is on the schedule. Go Green.